Panthers, who are going to be facing the Washington Commanders. And I think honestly, this game is pretty simple as well. Kind of in the last, similar to the last one, where you just have a much better quarterback in Jaden Daniels. I think the only situation, and Jaden Daniels is going against just a. I mean, I'm trying to be not too negative about a team that my brother has adopted down there in Carolina, and that I went to their game as a Carolina Panthers fan. But that defense is just bad. It really is. It's really bad, and injured too. So the only situation where the Commanders slip up in this game is if they're looking a week ahead to the Bears coming off a bye, and I don't see it happening at home for them. I think this is an easy pick for the Commanders to win this game, with Jaden Daniels rolling and continuing to build a case for, basically a CJ Stroud 2.0 season. If he can keep this up, of just being automatic at this point. We'll see if the offense is sustainable. I have questions about that, but to this point, you can't argue that he is having almost as impressive of a year as CJ Stroud was last year.
And I think we saw Jaden Daniels come back down to earth last week, and I think this is now going to be a bounce back against a very susceptible Carolina defense.
But they
I
were
think
right there against the Ravens, though. I mean,
and they were a quote unquote letdown just in terms of not being able to pull it off against a very good team. No, I agree, Pat. And I think their defense has actually stepped up a lot in the past couple of weeks to be able to, kind of plug a weakness for Dan Quinn. I think just the time he's had to be able to kind of develop them on that side of the ball has worked wonders for them. I think Jaden Daniels is playing a lot more from ahead and not as much from behind, put him in just a better position. And he's really showing that they have skill players. They have Terry McLaurin. Brian Robinson should be back in this game as well. He's really taken over the reins for Austin Eckler completely. He's become kind of an afterthought in this offense. I think there's a connection also building with Zach Ertz. I think they just have too much talent on that side of the ball, and just as we've mentioned ad nauseum, just way too many questions on both sides of the ball for Carolina.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Christian.
I just want to say good news in Carolina. They opened up Jonathan Brooks's 21-day window, so he should be back or be starting soon. First game of the season. They lost Ashawn Robinson. He was playing really well for them on the defensive side, Carolina. And then for Washington, I think they validated themselves last week versus Baltimore. The only negative thing I'll say is Jonathan Allen out for the year, tore his pec.
Roll Tide. That's a sad Roll Tide.
Yeah, that's a tough one. But Brian Robinson didn't play last week. I think he could have helped them in the red zone a lot.
Roll Tide.
Hopefully he's back healthy. And then shout out to Tress Way. First time we saw him all year. He played really well as the punter. But I thought Jaden took way too many hits on Sunday. I don't want to see him get hit like that.
That's obviously a big concern with him too.
And Brandon, we were talking about the line, the O-line holding up. I think last week was the first sign of like a young, maybe lack of cohesion in Washington that they still got to get used to.
Yeah, granted against two.
Yeah, hopefully they don't get used to it against the Bears next week.
Yeah, but I was going to just to touch on this game. Look, Carolina's defense, they got torched versus honestly in every single facet against the Bears, and they could not stop a nosebleed against Atlanta, specifically running the football. So if the Commanders really do get Brian Robinson back this week, I expect their offense to have a large degree of success against this defense. Now, I do think Carolina's offense, kind of a sneaky unit, no world beaters or anything, but they can run the football with Chuba Hubbard, and with Andy Dalton at the helm, they definitely look more efficient passing the ball than with Bryce Young. And credit to Dan Quinn, he's getting the most out of this defense. We did see some cracks last week. I think at best this is an average Commanders defense, which is fine considering the level of offense that they play. If anything, I know the total's high at 50.5 right now. I mean, I could easily see this game being 31-20 Washington, something along those lines. I definitely lean the over here just because I think both defenses can give up some yardage, and I think Carolina's offense is a little bit sneaky in how they're able to run the football with Chuba Hubbard. Chuba Hubbard's quietly been a I know a lot of fantasy players out there. Chuba Hubbard's quietly been a really good fantasy running back.
Number 4. He's 4th in the league in rushing.
Yeah. He's been really good this year. You mentioned Jonathan Brooks opening up that practice window. Carolina's an interesting team. I know that they're bad. They're clearly bad. I definitely feel like they've got, other than Bryce Young probably not panning out, it seems like they have a little bit more pieces than they did last year. Maybe it's an upgrade in coaching combined with like a little bit more talent across the board. But yeah, I definitely think there'll be points scored in this game on both sides. So curious to see if Carolina ends up trading Deontay Johnson, though, if he holds any trade value. Just because that's a team that I think will need some draft capital back. They're still missing their second round pick going to the Bears. At least they have their first round pick, but if they could pick up an extra fourth for Deontay Johnson, maybe they consider doing it just to kind of recoup a little bit of that capital. But I do think there'll be points scored this week in that game. Definitely still lean Commanders just because of Carolina being absolutely dreadful on defense. But if I had taken anything this game, I like the over at 50.5. I think this could be anywhere from 31-20 to 28-24, something along those lines. But the ball will be moved nevertheless.